Hello, everybody. Well, a lot has been happening lately in the global geopolitical scene, and across social media, headlines have been flying all around that President Maduro has been captured, Venezuela has been invaded, US has taken over everything in Venezuela. But if we look beyond all the exaggeration, there are deep issues. Yes, if we look at the real geopolitical crisis, there is one that has been going on for decades. Now, let us examine US and Venezuela tensions through three different schools of thought. Now, the first one is the imperialist school of thought. We also have the democratic school of thought and the religious perspective or the religious school of thought. Now, these three schools of thought were not propounded by anybody. It was just something I discovered based on people's reaction towards all these issues. So I discovered three different perspectives: the imperialist, the democratic, and the religious school of thought. Now let's start with number one, the first one, the imperialist school of thought. Now this school of thought argues that the United States actions towards Venezuela are imperialistic in nature. Yes, designed to take control of all the resources in the country and not to promote freedom. But one thing we need to know about Venezuela is that Venezuela sits on the biggest, largest oil reserves in the world, estimated at over 300 billion barrels, more than that of Saudi Arabia. Now, another thing you need to note is that the oil from Venezuela is very heavy and thick compared to that of Saudi Arabia, that is very light. In the early 90s, President Hugo Chavez, the former president of Venezuela, nationalized the Venezuela's oil sector, and through that, he was challenging the US oil giants like the ExxonMobil. So it was like an affront to the US. So ExxonMobil sued Venezuela for $10 billion because of the nationalization of Venezuela's oil sector. So this was the grievance of ExxonMobil. The imperialists, they believed that former President Hugo Chavez was punished for resisting Western economic dominance. And they also believed that his successor, Maduro, inherited all the consequences of Chavez's actions. Now, what were all these consequences? Sanctions. Yes. Sanctions from the United States intensified from 2017 till now. Oil productions fell from about 2.5 million barrels per day in 2013 to below 800,000 barrels per day in 2020. And if we take a look at Venezuela's GDP, it reportedly shrank at over 70% within one decade. Hyperinflation reached trillions of percent at its peak. Now, the imperialists will say that economic strangulation was used as a weapon to collapse the state of the economy, the state of Venezuela from within. Yes, that's what they will say. Now, the imperialists also believe that what is going on right now in Venezuela is not democracy, but what? Resource control and geopolitical dominance. Now, let's leave the imperialist school of thought and move on to the democratic school of thought. Now, this school of thought sees things differently. They argue that Venezuela's crisis is self-inflicted and it was driven by corruption, poor governance, and mismanagement of wealth. But despite all the massive crude reserves in Venezuela, the Democrats believe that Venezuela lacked efficiency in refining its crude capacity, its oil reserve, and they relied heavily on the United States refineries, which are better suited to process Venezuela's heavy crude. Remember, I mentioned that Venezuela's oil is very heavy compared to that from Saudi Arabia and some other parts of the world. So their key argument, that's the key argument of the Democrats, is that oil revenues were politicized instead of reinvested into the economy. To them, they believe that under these two presidents, Chavez and Maduro, institutions got weakened. There were no transparent elections. Billions were allegedly stolen through corruption. So the US pressure is meant to, force reforms and not steal resources. That is the stand of the Democrat. The Democrat also believes that, sanctions are seen as a leverage against whatever kind of authoritarian leadership that is going on in Venezuela. They also believe that no matter the form of external intervention available, it is okay and it is necessary to reset the system. They also say that you can't blame whatever sanction that the United States is imposing on Venezuela, because if you blame the sanctions, why won't you blame the refineries that are not working? Why won't you also blame institutions that are collapsing? This is the position of the Democrats. To them, Venezuela is an example of, a country that has missed its opportunities in the scheme of things, not one form of foreign conspiracy. Well, that's their belief. Democrats, imperialists, two worlds apart. But now, the most important and striking school of thought that, I discovered while perusing all the reactions emanating from the occurrence, the religious school of thought. Now, this school of thought interprets events spiritually, and many of them cite the book of Matthew chapter 24 verse 7, where it said, nations shall rise against nations and kingdom against kingdom. They see global instability and economic warfare, superpower confrontations. They see all these things as a sign of the end times. Yeah, well, their point is also valid. Now, from this perspective, Venezuela is not just the exception, it is a pattern. Looking at Ukraine, Gaza, Sudan, Taiwan, the same script, but different stage. So to them, it is not just about Venezuela alone. It is a pattern that this is an end time. To them, moral decay, greed, and even power struggles are all fulfilling the prophecy that was in the Bible. To them, this is a warning that, see, human beings will fail, but only spiritual preparedness will endure. This is the position of the religious school of thought, or the religious perspective. To conclude all this, personally, as a journalist, I might not have a position or a stand. I have to be neutral and unbiased. But the big question is Venezuela a victim of imperialism, or is it a casualty of corruption, or a sign of a prophetic time? And the answer depends on which lens you choose to view all these things from. But one thing is clear, both global geopolitics, national politics, it is never one-dimensional. You can't just see it the way it is according to the headline. You have to think critically. You have to question the narratives. In fact, never consume the headline hook, line, and sinker. Think deep. Look at people's reactions and weigh options. My name is Nedo Kore. My friends call me Mazio Dogu. Since you are my friend, you can call me Mazio Dogu. I'm a broadcast journalist.